Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lori. Today I'm going to do a video on star beans, and it's one of my favorite subjects. I work with these beans all the time in my client sessions as well as just throughout my day. So I'm really excited to share a little bit more about who they are, what they are, how to decipher between the different types of higher dimensional beings that are out there, and perhaps tap into which system you may have most recently dropped down into. So first I want to talk about the title, the name. So we live in a matrix, right? And the matrix has language, and we put language onto things so that we can understand it. Most of these star systems and star beings that we connect with don't have names. There are thousands and thousands of these collectives or higher dimensional beings that are participating on the earth plane and the earth experiment that don't have names. And the only reason they don't have names is because humans haven't connected necessarily to them yet in order to place names onto them. So the star systems that we are very familiar with are the ones that are most active with the human population, and thus they have names. The humans have given them names, and that is why most of them have names. In their vibration, they don't hold names, most of them. They don't hold language. They don't speak the way we do. So that's the first thing. The second thing to understand as I move through this video is that star beings is a word that I use that feels comfortable and familiar to me. You can call them galactic beings. You can call them light beings, which they actually are, light beings. Higher dimensional beings, family of light. There's so many different names, ETs, whatever you want to call them. It really doesn't matter. It's what resonates with you. But when I say star beings, they reside in collective consciousnesses, collective light and energy in our field, in the Earth's field. And when we look up in the sky, we see them in constellations, or we experience, they are held, their consciousness is held in what we would call stars. And so that is where the name star being, stars family, came from. So you can call them any name that you want to call them. It doesn't matter. They are basically consciousness existing in a higher dimensional field than ourselves. And of course, like all of my videos, this is a reminder and a remembrance for you, because most of you are very familiar with these beings, very familiar with these consciousnesses. And as you begin to shift into higher states of consciousness, you will remember and experience and feel them more and more. So, let me give you a little background quickly on what I do, so you can kind of understand how I know what I know. I connect human beings to their star families. What is a star family? A star family is an aspect of you, the light being, an aspect of your light, okay, because you are multidimensional. So you are existing as source consciousness in many different dimensions, experiencing yourself in many different consciousnesses, all in this now moment. The human being is just one experience and one aspect of your light experiencing this density. Okay? So there is an aspect of you that you most recently resided as and in, most recently meaning in this earth experiment, where you chose to drop in and experience this matrix, third dimensional field, okay? So you chose to drop in from a higher dimensional consciousness. Now, this could be the angelic realm. This could be a star system or a galactic system. This could be a much larger collective system that is in such a high vibrational state that you couldn't even really consider it a galactic star or ET system. It is much more, such a high vibrational field that it's just light. There's many places that you could have, many experiences of yourself that you could have most recently dropped down into. So a star family, the label itself is very kind of boxed in, but what it is basically where you most recently resided as in consciousness prior to dropping into physical form. And one of the universal laws of being in the third dimensional matrix is that you are energetically connected to that light, that frequency, that consciousness while you're in, kind of like a lifeline, while you're in your physical form. So you are never alone or separate from where you came from, even though it feels like you are, okay? So what I do is I connect the client to this system, consciousness, aspect of themselves, which is inside your physical form in the etheric body. The light body, the light being that you are is held inside the etheric body, okay? And it is an aspect of this consciousness that you came from. Now, this is not the only consciousness you reside as, okay? I've said this in other videos. There's aspects of you perhaps experiencing many different consciousnesses, perhaps, right? Maybe not. It's all free will. The second you separate from source as your own individual source consciousness and light, you then have free will to experience any consciousness that you want at any now moment. And you can break off and experience yourself in many different ways. So in my sessions, I connect to these beings. And so I am constantly connecting to higher dimensional light beings and translating the information to the client. And so what does this mean for me? It means that I feel these light beings. I feel their energy. I understand their kind of personalities, even though they don't have the personality like we do. I understand their vibration. I understand their dimensional field. I have gotten to really understand why, if you're from the Palladian system, what kind of aspect of your light you're holding inside of you. If you're from the Andromeda system, what kind of light you're holding inside of you. If you come from a specific system, there are kind of traits that you're holding in terms of why you're on the earth plane and your purpose work. It's really interesting. So I've been engaging with these beings for a couple of years now. It's almost like, I go to school and I'm surrounded by these beings and I'm very, very familiar with them. I've done over 1,000 sessions. And every single session, I am connecting with a higher dimensional light being. And I say this because I want you to understand where my information is coming from. It's coming from them. Now, I also want to explain, because sometimes channelers like myself and other channelers, I think we forget that it's so normal for us to do this, that the human that hasn't been able to experience these light beings don't understand, like, well, what do you mean you connect to them? And what does it feel like? And what does it look like? So my experience is this. I bring myself into a little bit higher of a vibrational state. I take my etheric body, which is my light body, and I bring it into the room. I actually bring myself into the room where the client is. And I call in these beings, and they are ready because they know what this session's all about, and they start to bring themselves into the room. And you can almost imagine as if it's like you're watching kind of like a movie, right? Except that you're in the movie. Almost like a dream state, except that it's very real. But it's not my physical form. So these beings don't just appear right in front of me with my eyes open and I just start communicating with them. My eyes are always closed and I'm always in the client's field and in the client's space because they're coming in for the client, not for me. And when they come in, they are light. Now, depending upon the dimension that they are holding will tell me how much of density they're holding. What do I mean by that? if I have a Pleiadian coming into the room, they're going to be much more of a form. So I'm actually going to see a form. Typically, the Pleiadians are tall, about 9 to 10 feet. Okay, they are usually really long kind of bodies. Typically, they have some sort of like white kind of outfit, coat type of thing on. They look very human, except that they have long faces. They don't look funky, right? Arcturians look a little bit strange, but and when I'm looking at them, it's not like I'm looking at a human body. So it's not like it's like an actual like tangible form that I can hold and touch, because I'm in my etheric body. So I'm in my light body experiencing their light. So it's not like they're physically standing here. And I think that's a misconception around a lot of people that talk about interacting and engaging with these beings. These beings rarely are physical, palpable, like right here where you can hold them. They are typically being experienced by the human's etheric body, by their light body. So it feels very much like a dream. So when they come in, if they are a lot more of a light, like a light pole, a light form, then I know that they're in a higher dimension. And depending upon how light or bright that light is, that will tell me the dimension they're in. So I feel into that, right? So it's more of like it's an energy, and then there's a form, and depending upon the dimension they're in, the lower in dimension, the more form there's going to be. Okay, and it's all energy that I'm getting all my information through the energetic vibration of them. So my energetic field is tapping into their energetic field, and then I'm receiving and translating the information and navigating that. And typically they show a lot of pictures for me. So they show me pictures and like it's like I'm watching a movie in order for me to understand. So that's kind of the background. I wanted to give that background so that you knew when I started explaining these beings, how do I know this, okay? I spend a lot of time with these different beings. So there's a gamut. There's so many beings that I could describe in this video today, but I think I'm going to talk about maybe 7 or 8 that are the most prevalent, the ones that come in the most, the ones that have been around the Earth's experiment for millions of years, have been participating for millions of years, and most of us are familiar with. So let's start with, I'm just making sure that I'm not forgetting anything. I think I got the gist of the star beings. I'm not talking about the angelic realm, which is a totally different energy and vibration. And let me just preface this really quickly, you guys. The reason I want to share this video is because they wanted me, the beings of light, all of these beings that are like, let's go share, tell them more, tell them about us. They want to demystify the whole galactic sort of community out there. The paradigm around star beings, ETs, galactics, right? It's like, ooh, there's this image around this whole community that needs to be demystified. It needs to be brought down into it's very normal who they are. You, they are you. They are an aspect of you. It's not this like mystical thing that we should be so lucky to be able to engage and connect with. Or, this whole sort of paradigm out there about, I forgot the word that the community uses, but basically like, contact with these beings and finally recognizing that they've been contacting the humans and all of this sort of stuff that like really blows it out of proportion in terms of the really normal reason for these beings being here, which is you being in physical form. The only reason why they're there is because you're here in your physical form. So you're serving an aspect of them by being in the physical form. There's nothing spectacular or special about them other than that they are you. That's it. So anyways, let's go. Trying to think of that word. You guys know that word, that the community, that there's that large ET community about you know, whatever it's called, where they're trying to talk about the fact that the government's been connected with these beings and blah, blah, blah. It's really being blown out of proportion. But okay, anyway, so here we go. Let's start with the Pleiadians. So for many of you that are watching this, you can kind of tap into, like, when I start talking about one of the systems, how does it resonate with you? Because you will resonate with a specific system. I call them systems as well, okay? Because they are big, large collectives. So you can kind of tap into which one resonates with you, right? And again, there are thousands out there that don't have names, that come into the session and they don't have a name. And so the client will say, well, can you give me, what's their name? Can you give me something? And there's nothing to give, you know? So they'll say, you know, if they're a group of 9 or a group of 12, they'll say that they can call them the collective, the 9 collective, or the team of 9, or, you know, something like that. Sometimes they'll have like a letter. They'll give me a letter, the Z's or the W's or the P's, right? So the human can have something to hold on to. But they are collectives. And let me just say one more thing about them. This consciousness these consciousnesses are so large that it's really hard for the human to understand. So it's not just like, oh, there's this, you know, ship up on the sky and it's got these Pleiadians in there and that's where the Pleiadians stand. No, the Pleiadians use ships in higher dimensions to sort of navigate and engage with the human in a little bit easier format. But they don't reside there, right? They reside in these large collective consciousnesses, which when we look up in the sky look like stars, but they're actually not stars. They are collectives of higher dimensional light. And depending upon how large that collective is, there are collectives within that collective. So if you have a Pleiadian system out there, a large Pleiadian system, there's going to be many collectives within that system. And there's very specific collectives that will come in that are from the Pleiadian system, but that hold different aspects, different personalities, different traits, different ways of experiencing their energy. So I'm doing a broad sort of explanation of these systems, of these star beings, but there are really unique qualities about the collectives within the collective, if that makes sense, okay? So Pleiadians vibrate. First of all, the Pleiadians are one of the closest systems to humans, and they are like our cousins, our brothers and sisters. They are one of the most active systems right now with us, working with us, communicating with us. And they are going to be probably one of the first systems that we start to engage with physically as we start shifting into higher frequencies and anchoring into higher dimensions. So they are very, very active with us right now, and many, many humans interact and engage with the Pleiadians. Now, that doesn't mean that that's where you dropped down from, but many of you know the Pleiadian system. So here's how they kind of experience themselves. They vibrate. So side note again, sorry, but there's lots of side notes. These systems don't just vibrate in one dimension, just like the human. Right now, you guys are recognizing that there's humans that are vibrating in a 3rd dimension, 4th dimension, and 5th dimension, right? So humans can vibrate between a 3rd and 5th dimension depending upon where they're at in their dimensional frequency, right? So star systems are the same way. They typically aren't just 7th dimensional beings, right? There are races that have been created by higher dimensional beings that reside only in a 4th dimensional frequency and only in a 5th dimensional frequency. But they are very small. These races of beings are very small compared to a large collective like a Pleiadian system. So there are higher dimensional systems of light that have created races of beings that do hold just one dimensional frequency I am not going to go into that today. That is a completely other story about all of that, how the fourth and fifth dimensional races were designed and created by higher dimensional beings within this Earth's kind of 12th dimensional matrix. That's another YouTube video. Maybe I'll do it, maybe I won't right now, but it's part of my book. Okay, so the Pleiadians vibrate between a 6th and a 9th, somewhere in there, okay? Now, please remember, this is my experience, this is my information, and there are many other people that experience Pleiadians, and they could be experiencing higher dimensional Pleiadians. So this is not the end-all be-all of information, all right? This is not absolute truth. This is my truth, and this is my experience. So I'm sharing it with you. There are many truths out there. There are many ways to experience and be in this awakening process and in this understanding process, right? So there's many different ways to experience Pleiadians. So please know that as I'm explaining these beings and these systems, that just because I say what I say doesn't mean that that is absolute truth. There are many truths out there from many different human beings that are experiencing these same beings, okay? This is just my truth, my experience. The Pleiadians vibrate between a 6th and a 9th dimensional frequency. So when they come in as a 6th dimensional frequency, they are very form-like. They look like long beams of light with form. And they're typically, you can tell that they are vibrating with light. So they have this vibration to them, almost as if you can see through them. And they hold an energy of vast love. Like the energy around the Pleiadian system when you start connecting with them is like you're being smothered by your grandmother, right? And you can do no wrong. You are the most amazing being on the earth plane. You have done everything perfect. In fact, you've gotten A+ on your report card from the moment you dropped into physical form. The Pleiadians are all about loving you. Loving you, loving you, loving you. When you start to connect to the Pleiadian energy, and they're coming in right now as I'm talking, and they're really excited for me to be sharing about them in this way, you start to tear up because there is so much love and honoring from the Pleiadians for what you are doing in your physical form. And it feels really good to connect to that energy because you feel like you're being seen for who you are, not just the human being. And they are always encouraging and reminding. It's a reminder. The Pleiadians are always reminding the human, don't forget about this, don't forget about this, don't forget about that, right? If you're from the Pleiadian system, and there's millions of humans walking the earth plane that are from the Pleiadian system, you are designed to work from your heart center, from the 4th energy center. Now, of course, all of us are starting to awaken and activate that center. But if you are a Pleiadian aspect within the physicality, your work is all held within that consciousness, the heart-centered consciousness, which means that your service is from that energy. Your service is from first coming in and beginning to love yourself and really starting to recognize that just because you have all this love and admiration and desire to serve the human and release the human suffering, right? A lot of the Pleiadian aspects of human wants to release and relieve human suffering. You have to come into your own self-love first. It's a really huge piece to the Pleiadian consciousness is don't forget who you are. Don't forget how much you are loved. Don't forget how much to love yourself, right? So it's a wide open, heart-centered sort of experience that you start to do when you're beginning to do service work through that Pleiadian consciousness. So they're very easy to connect to if you start to, they want to connect, they want to connect, they want to connect. And so they're saying, call us in, call us in, call us in. And all of the systems say this, call us in, call us in, call us in. And what that means is invite them into your space. So you just close your eyes, Bring yourself into your body and into your breath, and open up the crown and invite them into your space. Say, come on in, Pleiadians. I'd like to feel you today. I'd like to feel your energy. And the Pleiadians are one of the systems that will really come close to you and move into your field. They will, with your own free will, allowing them to come in, they will really move their energy in. And it will feel very soft. It will feel very loving. You will have tears, absolute tears. You will be held in the arms of love. So that's the Pleiadian system in a very short nutshell. So if you are from the Pleiadian system, one of the things you'll recognize is that you may be called to really start to focus back in on your own self-love, self-care, self-compassion. Now, we all are being asked to do that, but the Pleiadians are really being asked to do that because the work is centered from that space. And there's not a lot of pressure from the Pleiadians. The Pleiadians won't pressure you like the Sirians. The Sirians are going to get you like, what are you doing? Let's go. The Pleiadians are very much like, do whatever you want to do. We love you. Take as much time as you want. We love you. We don't care what you do. We're just honored that you're in the physical form, and we're going to remind you over and over and over again. So that's a brief sort of, for the sake of time, the Pleiadians. Okay, let's go into the Arcturians. One of my favorite systems. I love the Arcturians so much. So the Arcturians are coming in. It's my turn. It's my turn. It's my turn. So the Arcturians have a really, if they had like a personality like a human, it's a fun personality. So the Arcturians vibrate between like an 8th and an 11th, 8, 9, 10, somewhere around there, 8 to 10, in that kind of vibrational field. So they're a little bit higher up than the Pleiadians. But the Arcturians can be seen. The Arcturians, when they come into this space, depending upon what dimension they're vibrating in, if they're in a little bit of a lower vibration, I will be able to see them a little bit, which means that there's a form to them. A lot of the Arcturians that come in with really strong personalities, which means that their energy, their vibration is vibrant. There's a lot that their energy is expressing and experiencing. So meaning like when I tap into their energy, I'm feeling a lot of emotion, a lot of like adjective words, right? Fun, funny, jovial, that kind of stuff. That's the way I would describe their energy. When they're in a lower dimensional field, like 8th dimension, they're short, okay? And there's a lot of blue light that comes from the Arcturians. So the lower dimensional beings are a little bit shorter, 4 or 5 feet, right? They're adorable. They're so cute, and they're funny. And then the higher up you go in dimension with the Arcturians, the 9th and 10th, they're taller. They're taller beings, and they become a little bit more light. And actually, the other interesting thing about the Arcturians is the higher they go in frequency, the less sort of jokester they become. So the Arcturians are here to work with the humans' healing. They have tools and implants and like technology that assists the human in opening and activating their multidimensionality, healing in a way that the human in this dense form can't heal. There's a lot of technological implants that they designed and assist the human in designing for healing in any capacity, mentally, emotionally, physically, on the planet, the planetary healing, environmental healing. And it's all, and so they do a lot of that kind of work. So if you are from the Arcturian system, there is an aspect of you that is based on assisting humans in healing, assisting humans in understanding how to access their multidimensionality, kind of opening up the pineal gland, opening up the third eye, opening up the channel, allowing like sacred geometric shapes to create energetic portals in order to receive healings, things like that. And on a very personal note, in terms of them, they are rare. They want to have fun. So if you are experiencing the Arcturians, they will do anything and everything they can to get you to see them. They have been they've been known to shift their vibration down into as physical of a form as possible for you to see them. They'll literally do whatever they can they want the human to see them. They run around your room without you seeing them. They try to move things so that they will move things out of where, like take things out of place and move it somewhere else, like your keys or your shoes or your socks or your crystal or like a book, right? Something was there and then all of a sudden it's gone. Like, wait, where'd that go? If you're working with an Arcturian, it could possibly be the Arcturians. They will move around your space when you're watching TV or listening to music or doing something, and you'll feel energy moving, right? It's like, wait, I feel like there's something moving, but I didn't see anything. That's the Arcturians. The Arcturians are like, let's play, let's play, let's play, let's go, let's go, let's go. They just want to have fun with you. And they really want to remind you of how much fun it is to be in that physicality. Even though we're kind of like, well, it's not always that fun. You know, this ascension process isn't that fun. And the Arcturians are reminding us, yes, it's fun, it's fun, it's fun, it's awesome, let's go. So they are just waiting on standby for you to say, come on in, show me yourself, show me yourself, show me yourself. And so here's what happens, and this is with any system of light. When you say show yourself, or I'm ready, let's go, let's go, let's go, they are right there, okay? They come right in. But it is a matter of patience, because we are dealing with a dimensional shield that is challenging. You know, it is very challenging to hear a sixth dimensional being, a seventh dimensional being, an eighth dimensional being. Now, the higher you go up in dimensions in regards to accessing that being, the higher they are in dimension, the more challenging it is to experience it, because the farther it is from your own energetic field. So be aware of that. So dealing with the Pleiadian energy is going to be a little bit easier than dealing with an Andromeda system, which is at an 18th dimensional frequency. Okay, so have patience with yourself, and don't give up though. So the more you start to ask them to come in, regardless of whether you're hearing, feeling, or seeing anything, you'll eventually start to engage with them. I promise you. Don't give up. Especially with the Arcturians. And it doesn't matter what system you're from. If you're feeling called to play with the Arcturians, then just start playing and seeing what happens. And the other piece to all of this, you guys, is to trust and believe. Know that they're with you when you call them in, and then believe whatever it is you hear, feel, or see. So a lot of times they start showing themselves, the Arcturians, and then they're like, well, we're showing ourselves to you, but you're not believing it. Like, what else do we need to do, right? We're showing ourselves to you. We're doing things around you, and you're feeling it and hearing it. And then you say, nah, that couldn't have been them. So they get frustrated. They don't really get frustrated, but they're like, okay, let's do it again. Okay, we'll do it again. You know, I've said this before in videos, but they want contact with you just as much as you want contact with them. Okay, so just remember that. So the Arcturians are really awesome. I love the Arcturians when they come in. Okay, let's do Sirians. So the Sirians are a very, very, very large. The Sirians are a much larger collective than the Arcturians and the Pleiadians. The Sirians are a very, very large collective. And within the Sirian system, there are many, many, many different collectives that are holding very different unique qualities, energetic qualities. So there are thousands of collectives within the large Sirian collective. It's almost like trying to explain the earth and the planet, right? And all the different unique humans. And so sort of like, depending upon what country you're in or what continent you're on, you're going to hold a little bit of a different energetic vibration. You may look a little bit different. You may act a little bit different. Your work may be a little bit different depending upon what country or continent you're on. So it's the same thing with collectives, okay? And the Sirian collective has thousands of different collectives. So just because you're connected to a Sirian doesn't mean that that somebody else is going to connect to the same type of Sirian, okay? There are many different ways to experience the Sirians. Sirians are shapeshifters. So they will, and a lot of systems are, a lot of star systems will shapeshift. So what does it mean to shapeshift? What they will do is they will bring their vibration down to a form that human can see and connect to in order to believe that they're there. Sirians are not actually, and most systems are not actually what the physical person sees. They are in too high of a vibration to have a form like that. Okay, so if people are saying that the Sirians are cat-like or things like that, they are, because they will bring themselves down into that vibrational field so that the human can see them for the sake of the human believing. I mean, remember, they're trying to come in and connect with you and the human's not believing it. So they're going to do anything they can vibrationally to get the human to say, oh, okay, I saw them. I saw it, right? When you move when you're out of a seventh dimension, when you move beyond seventh dimension, anchoring in a seventh dimension, the form starts to get real light. Okay, so when you're in an eighth dimensional frequency, you're pretty light in terms of form. So there's a form there, but it's light. Okay, and then you go into a ninth, it's even lighter. There's a little bit of a form, much lighter. When you go to a 12th, 11th, 13th dimension, you're talking about light. Maybe it can turn a little bit into form, but you're talking about light consciousness, no longer form. And the Sirians vibrate between 10th and 11th, 12th, 10 to 13th, maybe 9th, but more of like a, okay, they're saying 9th to 11th is kind of what they want us to focus on in terms of dimensions. And that's pretty high. 11th dimension is pretty high. So an 11th dimensional being isn't going to look like a cat-like feature. It's not going to have those features. So this is a really important piece to understand, you guys. What humans see when they see higher dimensional beings beyond a seventh dimension, that is not actually what they reside in their natural state. So fifth dimensional beings are forms, sixth dimensional beings have a lot of form. Seventh dimensional beings is when you start to move out of a much more form. So Arcturians, Sirians, and all the others I'm going to talk about are not those scary, weird looking three-fingered things that you see in books and in movies and in, Google art and all that stuff. If the human has seen them in physicality like that, it's because these consciousnesses have brought their energy down to a form so the human can see it and understand it. All you have to think about, it's physics. That's all it is. There's no debating this. It's physics. When you shift higher and higher in frequency, you become more light. That's how energy works. So you can't all of a sudden be in a 10th dimensional frequency and hold a form. That doesn't work. The only way that would work is if you slowed your energy down to turn into form. So the Sirians do that. Sirians are not cat-like. They don't exist in that form. They're not lions. They're not any of that, right? And same with the Arcturians. So the vision or the pictures that lots of people have of those, when you look at the Google art and there's like these beautiful pictures of the Sirians and these beautiful pictures of the Arcturians, they actually don't look like that. They're light forms, most of them. But they will shapeshift themselves down into as much physicality as possible so that you can see them and say, oh, they exist. Otherwise, the human would never believe they existed because they would have to believe in light and energy, and it would be very challenging. Okay? So the Sirians, whoever named the Sirians, really understood their energy because the Sirians are very, very serious beings. They are very much, they're not like the Arcturians. They're very opposite from the Arcturians. The Sirians are like, this is why you're here. This is what you're here to do. We need you to get going. What do you need from us in order to get you going? So the Sirians come in, they're very much like a teacher, right? They're like, this is serious. We got things to do and we need you to do it. We loved you to death. You're amazing. right? But they are not a Pleiadian energy where it's like, you're the greatest thing ever. Don't worry about anything. We love you. Can you love yourself a little bit more? Have compassion, right? Then there's the Arcturians that are like, play with us, play with us, play with us, play with us. And then you have the Sirians. They're like, we need you to get to work. So if you're from the Sirian system, there are aspects of you that are really hard on yourself because it's like, I am supposed to be doing something now. Now, many of us feel that way, okay, just because we're light workers. But a Sirian, really, it's like, it's torture. It's like they're beating themselves up because it's almost as if they can hear that Sirian aspect of them in that higher consciousness, the Sirian system, really trying to wake them up to get them going. And once you wake up to who you are, the aspect of light that you are, oh my God, I'm a Sirian. Oh my God, my purpose must be, you know, ready to go, ready to go, ready to go. And then it becomes a matter of recognizing that your purpose is so there's a lot of ways in which a purpose can unravel, right? And there's a lot of you that came in with a variety of different ways in which your purpose is going to unravel, because we live in a consciousness and a matrix that has an infinite amount of possibilities. So if you're a Pleiadian or an Arcturian or an Andromeda, a Lyran, a Cassiopeia, all these different systems that I'm going to talk about, many of them, your purpose work can be unraveled in many different ways, meaning you can take many different avenues to explore and enter into your purpose work. When you're a Sirian, it's more defined. Your work is much more defined. And so it's very straightforward. It's very specific. It's a very specific sort of, this is what you're doing, let's go, right? And so there's not as much, you won't be exploring all these different opportunities. So a lot of different star systems, when they jump into human form, when they start to discover their purpose work, they'll be exploring all these different avenues. Maybe this is it. 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 Where is it? I can't find it, right? Just kind of like playing around with all these different things until boom, this feels right. Go. Sirians are not like that. Sirians are like, this is it. It's focus time. I know it's something specific, and as soon as I find that specific, I'm in, right? And so that's why when the Sirians come in, if you start connecting with the Sirians, it's a high frequency light, right? So it's going to be more of a light energy, and they're going to be very directive with you. So a really good way of bringing in the Sirians is not necessarily to feel them, but to listen and write, ask questions and write, ask questions and write, because the Sirians are going to be very straightforward, just like your higher self. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Okay, well, what about this? Let's do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Okay, so that's the Sirians. And so those three are the most prominent and the most active, and have been since the beginning of the Earth's experiment millions of years ago when she was in 5D. Now, we also have the Lyrans, and the Lyrans are probably the most ancient of star systems. The Lyrans are in a much higher vibrational field, between a 14th to a 16th dimensional field. The Lyrans were one of the systems that participated in creating the human form. And so they are a very large collective as well, like the Sirians. And when I say ancient, it's very challenging to explain that, because when consciousness splits from source, it then becomes its own light. And then, so it's its own vibration, it's its own beingness, right? Experiencing itself separate from source. And the way collectives are created is that this one unique being decides to experience a dimensional field, and then other light that separates from source wants to experience that same collective, or that same dimension, I'm sorry. So let's say this being comes out and is like, I want to experience my energy in an 18th, 16th, let's say 16, so we can do Lyran. I want to experience myself as a 16th dimensional energy and consciousness. What does that feel like? What does consciousness feel like in a 16th dimension, right? Because remember, source is just source. It can't experience all these other dimensional aspects that's available in energy when it starts to shift its energy. It just is the all of everything. So when other aspects of source separate from source and become their own individual unique light, they can also say, what is this? I want to experience a 16th dimensional frequency as well. And so then all of these unique lights connect to one dimensional field, joining in and becoming a collective. And so there's collectives that have been created by individual light longer than other collectives. And so that makes that collective ancient or older than other collectives. Okay? Now this is me trying to explain this in a linear time. It's not actually like that. But in terms of us being able to kind of understand it, that's how collectives are created. This is in my book. So collectives are created by individual unique expressions of source, coming out of source, becoming their own unique expression, deciding what they want to experience themselves as, and then collecting as a collective in that dimension. Then they become a collective. And the larger the collective, the larger unique individual aspects of source are within that collective. So the Lyrans are very large, all of these systems are collectives. Aspects of source, unique individual aspects of source that have decided to experience themselves as that dimensional field. And then there's a collective that is created, and within that collective is dimensional fields, and within that dimensional field, depending upon that dimension, there's going to be aspects of that energy that you're going to experience yourself as. And then when you connect to these systems of light, that's what you're connecting to. You're connecting to the collective energy of that beingness. So the Lyrans are ancient. They've been around for a very, very, very long time. And they dropped into the Earth's experiment. They were one of the first collectives to drop in to the 12th dimensional grid around the Earth to help assist and experiment and play in the 5th dimensional field. And they assisted the Galactic Federation of Light. So there are Lyrans that are within that are participating in the Galactic Federation of Light, and they assisted in creating the human form through 12th dimensional DNA. Okay, I don't want to go into the fact that the human isn't a race. It's not a race. The human being is just a physical form that holds and encases higher dimensional light. Okay? So the Lyrans didn't create humans. The Lyrans assisted in creating the physical form that holds higher dimensional light within the etheric body. Okay? I'll do another video on that some other time, but this is part of my book that's coming out, and I'll explain it in more detail. No light beings created a human, meaning like you sitting there. You weren't created by a higher dimensional light being. Now there are races, like I said earlier, that there are races, 4th and 5th dimensional races that are not collectives, that were designed and created as a consciousness holding form. So they're 4th dimensional consciousness in a 4th dimensional form. That's a race. We are a 3rd dimensional form with our higher dimensional light inside of it. We are not 3rd dimensional consciousness. We are experiencing 3rd dimensional consciousness. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So the Lyrans assisted in creating the DNA structure for the physical form to be held in 5th dimension. And then it moved down into 3rd dimension. Now, if you're from the Lyran system, so the Lyrans, when they come in, they're very quiet. The Lyrans are it's almost like you're standing in front of a very, very old man, like a 100-year-old man with glasses on. And there's a lot of wisdom with the Lyrans. They're very soft and gentle. They have a huge amount of knowledge. So if you're from the Lyran system, sometimes your purpose is less about service work, and it's more about the remembrance of shifting consciousness and physicality. So a lot of Lyrans are in this lifetime they've been light workers for a very long time. Okay. Same with the Pleiadians. You've been light workers for a very long time, but if you're in physical form in this lifetime and you're from the Lyran system, it's really a lot about experiencing consciousness shifting in physical form. What does it feel like? Because that's the reason millions of years ago that they came in to this matrix with the earth, fifth dimensional matrix. And so a lot of you that are Lyran are really, it's all about experiencing the physical conscious shift, ascension, the physicality of it. The other thing about Lyrans is that they know a lot about the earth's history. A lot of these systems obviously do, but the Lyrans are, I mean, they are part of the beginning of the entire earth's journey. And so if you're from the Lyran system, it's very possible that you have been watching the earth move through her ascension process for a very long time, including watching her shift down into lower dimensional fields from the fifth to the third. So there's a lot of knowingnesses innately about this whole journey. If you're a Lyran, you may also feel annoyed and frustrated. There's two aspects of you, that you're frustrated and annoyed when you look out and see how things are dealt with in this matrix, the dimensional matrix. And yet there's also an exciting piece to it, that you're excited about moving forward. You're excited about getting there, right? Now, this is a quality that a lot of us hold as light beings anyway, but the Lyrans really hold this. So again, it's not so much about purpose work with the Lyrans. It's more about the knowledge that they have, and that you have inside of you, and you're here to really experience the physicality of shifting. Okay, another one of my favorites is Cassiopeia. The Cassiopeia system has been coming in a lot lately. The Cassiopeia system, so when you look up in the sky there, the W looks like a little crown or a W. Cassiopeia is between 18th, 19th, 20th dimensional field. They're very high frequency. Cassiopeia, when they come in, the Lyrans look very light. The Lyrans are light form when they come in. I will ask them to shift their energy down so I can tap into their energy a little bit easier. But when they come into space, it's like a pillar of light. That's a Lyran. Cassiopeia is the same way. But the Cassiopeia system, so 18th, 19th, 20th dimension, they come in with a lot of light, but they aren't a collective of light, right? So there's like the Andromeda system will come in and it's a collective of light, meaning it looks like a cloud of light. When Cassiopeia system comes in, it's a lot of light, but they're individual kind of aspects I can see. So I can see kind of pillars, right? Cassiopeia is all feminine energy. So how do you know, how can there be feminine energy in that high of a consciousness? They hold a vibration that is soft. They hold a vibration that is pink, sort of. So if you were to be able to tap into what the energy looked like around them in terms of a color, it's pink. It's got pink tones. And they hold a very strong feminine consciousness. And there are a lot of light workers on the earth plane from the Cassiopeia system that hold this purpose work of breaking out of paradigms, starting to speak, starting to stand up, starting to be strong and courageous in the midst of the density that they're in, the being held down, the shackled down. It's a lot about giving voice, teaching the human how to find their sovereignty in the midst of all of this chaos that we're in. And there's a softness around it. So it can feel a little bit like a Pleiadian, except the Pleiadian is much more palpable. But the Cassiopeia system is, because it's in an 18th, 19th, 20th dimension, it's all light. So it's a little bit harder to feel. But they are about getting if you're a light worker from the Cassiopeia system, it is all about speaking up and learning how to stand in your authenticity, stand in your light, stand in your voice and in your knowingness, and share. So a lot of people from the Cassiopeia system are designed to speak, to teach, to empower, those types of things. And there's a lot of women or incarnated light beings that have chosen to be in a woman's form that are from the Cassiopeia system. And so it becomes really unshackling the chains and assisting in bringing in that feminine consciousness onto the earth plane, balancing it out. Cassiopeia is an awesome system. I love them. I just love them. Let's do two more, Andromeda and the Avians. I could go on and on. There's so many, but we're almost at an hour. So the Andromeda system. Okay, so this is a really large system of light. The Andromeda system, I would say, vibrates between, in terms of dimensions, 13, 14, 15, somewhere in there, Andromeda. They're a very large collective. Andromeda is also known scientifically in the scientific community as the closest galaxy, I believe, to the Earth. And not to get off on a tangent, but it's actually that's where their consciousness is held, is in that kind of galaxy that you hold. So that shows kind of how big that collective is. It would blow our mind to really start to understand how this whole thing works. Again, part of my book, but it's mind-blowing to really start to grasp that science has just tapped the surface, really, of what this is actually all about. It's much more multidimensional, and science can only tap third-dimensional reality. Science can't go beyond third-dimensional reality because the scientists exist in the third dimension, and these consciousnesses exist in much higher dimensional realities. And so these scientists, it's not their fault. They just can't tap into that reality yet. So when they look up, they only see a galaxy, and it is way more than a galaxy. Andromeda system, when they come in, they are very humble. So, and these aren't human beings, okay? So when I say humble, when I tap into their energy, there's a humbleness to it. There's a quietness to it. The Andromeda system are consciousnesses that are very, very attuned and aware to what has been going on the earth plane. They are very potent and powerful beings of light, but they are very humble about it. So it's almost like the hidden sort of jackpot. So you're in a big party, and there's all these people around doing all these magic tricks, and everyone's like, oh my God, that's so amazing. You're so powerful. And then this being comes in that's an Andromeda, right? And they just kind of walk in, they stand in the middle of the room, and they have a human that, let's just say another human comes up to them and that has some sort of ailment, and this beautiful Andromeda within 3 seconds heals this human. The human walks away completely healed, and the Andromeda person walks back to their chair and sits down. Where all these other humans are kind of playing around and in the spotlight, like, look what I can do, look what I can do, look at all my magic, I'm so amazing, right? Like, look at me. And the Andromeda being human walks up, heals the person in 3 seconds, and goes and sits back down. They don't want to be in the spotlight. But they're very, very powerful. So if you're from the Andromeda system, you're quiet, you're humble, you are kind of in the background. People don't notice you. They don't recognize your gifts and your talents and your abilities. You may not even recognize your gifts, talents, and abilities yet, although innately, intuitively, you know who you are. So when you're in a room full of other light workers or teachers, spiritual teachers, and they're doing all these things and they're teaching all these things, and you're sitting back, there's an aspect of you that knows what you know. You sit there and you say, I know this, and I know more than this. I know my gifts, right? And yet you don't quite necessarily know what they are yet, right? And when people tap into your energy, it's like, wow, there's something powerful about you, and yet very humble. So you're not necessarily going to be one of those like a Cassiopeia or a Pleiadian or an Arcturian or a Sirian, where you're going to be on stage teaching perhaps, or a very famous sort of prolific way shower. You're going to be doing work quietly and very powerfully in a very humble way. So the Andromeda system that's what they hold. That's the energy that they hold. Is they know a lot. They're very powerful. They have a huge amount of gifts. The gifts are innate. I mean, all the gifts that you hold are innate. No matter what system you're from, they're all innate gifts. Okay, but the Andromeda system is. It's not like, hey, I'm right here. Look what I can do. I can help you. I can help you. They're more of just like, oh, somebody. I can tell that this person needs assistance. I'm going to walk over, I'm going to serve them, and I'm going to go sit back down and drink my orange juice or whatever they're drinking. It's not about like, hey, I'm here and I'm going to heal all of you guys, so come on over. You'll recognize you as an Andromeda if you have that knowingness about you, but you're quiet, but you kind of sit back. There's a lot of gifts that you hold that just, you already know you have them. You already know you can do them. You can access them. You just don't have the platform in which to practice them yet because you're humble. You sit back, right? And you wait until somebody comes up and says, hey, can you assist me in this? That's Andromeda. They've been coming in a lot lately. There's a lot of Andromeda light beings that are waking up more and more. And Cassiopeia. A lot of Cassiopeia beings are waking up in the physical form. And then let's do the Avions. Again, there's so many I can go into, you guys, but just for the sake of the video, the last one I'll do is the Avions. I mean, there's a lot of them that are like, okay, okay. So there's one more I want to go into that's, okay, let's do Avions. So the blue Avion, the Avion system is a large system as well. And the system that I'm going to talk about in terms of the collective within the collective of Avions are the blue Avions, because I connect with them a lot. So the Avions vibrate between a 9th and an 11th dimension, somewhere in there. They shapeshift down into bird-like beings. So a lot of times if you experience an Avion, first of all, there's a lot of blue light around them. There's also blue light around the Sirians. I just wanted to bring that up. I don't think I did. But the blue Avions have bird-like features, wing-like features, a lot of flying, a lot of bird pictures. And they're all about healing. So the blue Avions heal, and they heal the physical form, they heal the emotional form, they heal the mental form. And so one of the reasons the blue Avions are becoming more and more active with the human being is not because you may be a blue Avion, but because they're here to assist you in healing. They are here to assist the human in healing. There are many blue Avions that are in physical form, but not the way all these other systems are. The blue Avions are more about assisting the human as opposed to being in human form. Okay, so there are much fewer actual humans walking around that are blue Avions than Cassiopeia, Andromeda, Lyran, Sirian, Arcturian, Pleiadian, those. But if you are a blue Avion, you will be acutely connected to birds. You will have this knowingness about healing the physical form. There will be an aspect of you that is all about energy and healing the form, healing the physical form, knowing that you can heal the physical form. And the way you've kind of been moving through your purpose work is, now there's a lot of you that are light workers that are all about healing the physical form with Reiki, with crystals, with sound, with all of that, right? That doesn't mean you're a blue Avion. Blue Avions are very specific. They don't use sound or techniques like that to heal. It's just energy. Even Reiki is a technique, right? The blue Avions don't use anything other than energy. They have an energetic, like, laser that goes into the human form, attaches to that other energy, and dissipates it. So if you're a blue Avion, it's less about the techniques and it's more about, it's all energy. And I'm going to move that energy. I'm going to get into that energy, find where that energy field is, what subtle body it's in, and I'm going to release it. So it's a very simple way of healing human form. that's what the blue avians are doing in a very simplistic way. Now, you can talk about the Arcturians, right? The Arcturians are all about healing as well, but they use technology. They use tools. They use sacred geometric shapes. They use implants into the human, right? They are getting they're getting into it. Blue avians are like, I've got a laser beam energetic light. It's going to go straight into that light, into that energy in there. It's going to dissipate it, or whatever it's called, and then it's going to move through. So if you're a blue avian, you may be working through trying to figure out avenues and ways in which you're here to assist and heal the human form, and you haven't found it yet. Nothing quite works. It's like, nah, it's not Reiki, it's not sound therapy, it's not crystal work, it's not, whatever else you may be looking at. And the reason you haven't found it yet is because it's innately within you. It's not a technique. It's a knowingness of, oh my God. What the blue avians do is when they come in to assist the human, is they literally create a light from their form and from their light beingness. And they use that laser to go straight into where the energy is within the physical form, and they break it up. It's almost as if there's a laser beam going straight into the human form, right? You can imagine it like that. And then it breaks that energy up, that consciousness up, and it dissolves and goes out the human form. And that's what they do when they work with you. So that's what you're designed to figure out and do if you're from the blue avian system. But it's a lot of bird-like energy as well. So a lot of you are connected to the blue avians right now as you're healing. They're around you a lot. They come in and assist you at night. Doesn't mean you're from that system. So again, it's a very small population of humans that are holding the blue avian consciousness or aspect. But there's a vast amount of you that are experiencing them and receiving healings from them, because what happens is your higher self will connect to these beings and say, come in and assist. Because you're talking to your higher self and saying, hey, I need healing in this. And then your higher self is saying, blue avians, get in here, right? And so you're connecting to the blue avians. Or if you're really connected to the Pleiadians and you're telling the Pleiadians you need healing, the Pleiadians will call the blue avians in, right? They're like on standby right now, the blue avians. So, and what they look like to me is they look like blue beings that have wings. And they can have weird looking heads. They look like bird-like beings to me. And they again, in their consciousness, in their collective, they don't actually look like that. But when they bring themselves down into a slower vibrational field, that's what they're bringing themselves down in to look like. They're shifting themselves. Again, remember, a lot of these beings do shape shifting. So they shifted themselves down into this kind of version of themselves. And it's awesome. They're really beautiful, awesome, freaking bird-like beings. So that is, I think I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're past an hour mark, and that's 7 of them. There's a lot of other ones. I'm just not going to get into them right now. There's such a story behind these beings, you guys, and you yourself as an aspect of these beings. They are the experiment. They are Earth's experiment. I mean, if it wasn't for all of these beings, and there's thousands of them, by the way, participating right now with the Earth, and there's a lot of lower dimensional beings, 4th and 5th dimensional beings, that are also around off the Earth's grid, off the 5th dimensional grid, but actively participating in within the 12th dimensional grid. So there's a lot, and the 4th and 5th, 6th dimensional beings typically will reside on what the human calls planets, okay? They are form, so when you connect to them energetically, you will actually see forms, right? So those are the ones that look a little funky, look a little weird. And so they're not in large, high-dimensional light consciousnesses like star systems, okay? They are more in planetary systems. And that's because they are in a lower dimensional field. And a lot of the hype around ETs, galactics, a lot of that hype, it can be coming from the fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional beings that humans are interacting and engaging with. Disclosure, that was the word I was trying to think of. Disclosure comes from the experience of fourth and fifth dimensional beings with the human being, not these higher dimensional beings, okay? So the higher dimensional beings hold a very different consciousness and experience than a fourth and fifth dimensional being that is participating. Now, a fourth dimensional being participating holds a very different consciousness than fifth dimensional beings. There's many beautiful fifth dimensional races and beings out there that are assisting the earth plane right now. But they are not as active in terms of volunteers and light workers like all of these other systems. Typically, as a light worker, you are most likely from a higher dimensional field, you're absolutely not from a fourth dimensional field, and very few are from a fifth dimensional field. So one of the universal laws when the earth shifted into third dimension is that you had to exist at a fifth dimensional frequency or higher in order to drop into the physical form. And the reason for that is because the ascension process was bringing the earth and human form from a third dimension to a fifth dimension. So the light that entered into the physical form had to already be existing in that fifth dimensional field, because the light that comes in, the aspect of your light being, it doesn't shift in ascension. So the light within the physical form is shifting. The physical form is shifting. The light being that you are, that dropped into physical form and is held in the etheric body, that's remembering who you are, that's connecting to these aspects of you, that light doesn't shift. It doesn't shift. It's not designed to shift. You're held in a physical form that's designed to shift, okay? And the earth herself is designed to physically shift. But the physical form is designed to shift. But the light being that dropped into your physical form that you're in, held in the etheric body, is not designed to shift. So knowing that the earth was going to be moving into a fifth dimensional field through the ascension process, any being of light that was going to volunteer or be a light worker had to be already holding light that held a fifth dimensional frequency. It's just physics. It's just the way it works. A fourth dimensional light being can't move. It can't come down because it's not going to be able to move, regardless of when that consciousness dropped down, because the earth herself was going to be shifting quicker than the human into a fifth dimensional field. And a fifth dimensional field vibrates off of the earth. That was weird. Anyway, the point, I don't want to go into a tangent here. It's a little bit complicated, but the point is that most of you are not from a fifth dimensional race or consciousness. You're from much higher dimensional races and consciousnesses. And I didn't talk about the angelic realm, but they're amazing, really amazing. I'll quickly do angelic realm. So the angelic realm is usually a very high dimensional field. So they're usually 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. They're very high dimensional beings. And when they come in, it is, if you are an angelic being that has incarnated onto the earth plane in physical form, God bless you, because you are, it's all about self-sacrifice and releasing the suffering of humans. And it is selfless as an angelic being. And you are designed to be in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of the density. You are, an angelic being that lived on the earth plane and walked on the earth plane is Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Joan of Arc. These kinds of really powerful beings that walked the earth in the midst of destruction and chaos. Those are angelic beings in physical form. And when you are in the presence of an angelic being that comes into your space, so when I connect to the angelic realm, they can take on different sizes of angelic being. So they can be as big as the room, or they can be as big as a human form, right? Kind of depending upon how their vibration, how their energy expresses itself. But they always have these large, beautiful, expanded wings, and they are soft, gentle, quiet, beautiful. They don't speak a lot. When you have an angelic being coming in to communicate with the client, there's not a lot of talking compared to an Arcturian or an Assyrian, where it's like, they just can't stop talking, right? The angelic being is like, it's very quiet, it's very soft, and it's a lot of feeling. So you feel a lot in the angelic realm when you're with them. And your work here is selfless service. So you are, a lot of times, angelic beings are normal Joe Schmo people serving humans just by being who they are in the world. And so you may have like a normal job at a grocery store or at a bank, right? And you're an angelic being designed to be placed in the midst of all of the, normal humans just walking around. And you are serving in that capacity. You're serving by smiling. You're serving by giving. You're serving by just being the energy that you are. It's an amazing commitment to be an angelic being in physical form. It's also very challenging. It's very hard to do that. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. So let me know if you have any questions down below. I'll do my best to answer them if I can. And I've been wanting to do this video for a while about the star beings. Well, I haven't. The star systems, the beings have wanted me to do this video for a while. And I will come back out and do another video about other systems like the Anunnaki and the Greys. I think there's a lot that can be shared about them as well, because they are actually higher dimensional consciousnesses as well. And they actually created fourth dimensional races. And so a lot of us, when we think about the Anunnaki or the Greys, we think about these horrible beings that are doing these horrible things or did these horrible things to humans. And actually, there are higher dimensional aspects of those beings also. And that's a really beautiful story to be told. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you were able to kind of understand a little bit more about the star beings. So when you kind of listen to other people talking about it, you have a better understanding, I'm hoping, of who these beings are and how their energy feels. And so when you start to connect to them, it's about connecting to the energy. It's not about, can I see them? We learn as humans on Google and on search engines that they look certain ways. And so when humans try to connect, they're like, well, I'm not seeing those pictures. I'm not seeing that. I'm not, and it's like, well, they're not actually like that. It's energy first. It's always energy. And when they come in, it's energy. And you'll feel different energies. So trust what you feel. Trust your feeling when you start calling them in. And I guarantee you, if you call in different systems and you allow yourself to not have an expectation or an attachment to it, you will feel different energies when you call in the different beings. So try it out. Let me know. And I hope this was helpful to you guys. If you know anyone that is curious about star beings, galactic beings, higher dimensional beings, light beings, pass this video on. So others can understand the different energies around him. If you have any questions, again, go ahead and ask. Please like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my videos. Thank you for being here on my channel. I'm so appreciative to all of you. I love you all so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for continuing to remember, for being courageous and being in that physical form, and having compassion and empathy for yourself and your beautiful human journey. I love you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.